hybrid services and hybrid working, which has been the top of a lot of agenda lists, I know. The majority of the conversation I've noticed being had in this area has been mainly around the move to hybrid working though. So that's kind of the location of staff, either in the office or at home. We've circulated details of some training sessions on hybrid working to this group a little bit earlier last month. If anyone else went to these sessions, particularly the ones hosted by Managing Remote Teams and Charity Digital, please let me know, as I'd be really interested in your feedback. But we've also done a write-up from our perspective of the sessions, which Alice has just shared the link to. So we've shared notes from those. So if you've got any questions on those, let me know as well. We're going to have a breakout session where you can discuss your approach to hybrid working and hybrid service delivery models. But to introduce us, I'm going to ask Stuart Duffin from Dundee Law Centre to speak about some of the questions hybrid working throws up around coping with new challenges and taking steps to safeguard kind of clients, communities and employees. Then I'm going to be asking Jackie Ynys Mon, Citizens Advice, to chat briefly through their plans for future working. Just briefly, for our part as the Network for Justice facilitating the Justice and Innovation Group, we've decided that we will continue to facilitate the group on a remote basis, meaning that our quarterly meetings will continue to take place online. And we've decided that for a number of reasons, but mainly because hosting the meeting remotely allows us to source and showcase contributions from across the country and internationally more easily, and we didn't want to introduce the possibility of those voices being excluded at this stage. Of course, we'll keep this under review, and as the Charity Digital session on hybrid working highlighted, it's really very difficult to get something right first time. So we're open to this being a bit of a process, and we'll continue to rely on this group to let us know what's working and what's not in terms of these meetings. But yeah, firstly, over to you, Stuart.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for allowing me to say a few words about what we're doing in Dundee. Throughout the pandemic, we've we've reviewed our whole method of delivery, and what we've and going forward in looking at this, in order to both safeguard clients and also to safeguard workers, we're looking at working with a wide range of community groups and delivering legal services within areas that people are comfortable are going to, and that can be made very COVID compliant. So we're working with Citizens Advice, we're working with community advice agencies, and we're actually having digital rooms within those areas as well, so that clients, with the support of a navigator, can actually engage with a solicitor remotely, or they can engage with a solicitor face to face. We've also been developing within, you know, throughout the period as well. We've actually moved offices, and we've created a digital room for clients, so that when they're attending a hearing, whether that is in court or through a tribunal, they can have access to digital facilities and with the navigator, and help through with the assistance of a solicitor as well. So in certain ways, we're looking at different ways of working, different methods of working, but also we're beginning to look at moving back into the office more fully, which means that we've actually developed a rota. The office will not be, people will not be coming into the office full time. It will be in a 2 days, 2 days in the office, 1 day off, or possibly 2 days off, and then some working from home. So in that way, we're actually creating a different way of dealing with, you know, well, the deluge of clients that are coming down the line, because most of the areas that we're dealing with have moved into level 2 and level 1 in Scotland, which means that evictions can now happen again. And we actually saw that happen very quickly. So we're working so that we can actually enable people to get access to advice when they're in crisis. And we've done that as well through having a private and closed Facebook page where people can get help and assistance. We've also got dedicated WhatsApp lines where people can connect directly with the solicitor, where they can take photocopies of their documents, they can send them to us all securely, and therefore we can react and engage and represent them within that crisis. Many of our employees were anxious about coming back to work, are anxious about lone working particularly. So we've developed strategies and reporting systems that people are supported remotely for that, but also helped and supported when dealing with people in crisis. You know, obviously dealing with someone in crisis from your home environment is different from dealing with someone in crisis in a face-to-face situation in an office where there's help and support there. So there's a particular role in relation to daily contacts in relation to well-being, but also the ability to help and support one of the solicitors when they're dealing with a crisis representation or intervention. It's been challenging, it's been working, and you know, we're sort of very positive about going forward. One of the initiatives that are starting up again is a Safe Bus. We've been working with one of the addiction advice teams, and it's a night bus that goes round the city and the and the Tay City region, which includes rural Perth and Kinross and rural Angus, which for those people that don't know the geography of Scotland, it's adjacent areas that are quite can be quite rural and quite difficult to get to, and in you know, fairly isolated in terms of any advice services. And we've been looking at, you know, at other, you know, and we're trying to develop ways of working with high street solicitors to develop local pro bono schemes in local areas so that people can actually get and have access to different to advice and guidance. I think I'll just leave it there just to sort of highlight some of the, I've highlighted some of the initiatives, some of the also some of the concerns, but the key thing for us throughout this has been communication, regular communication, communication at the beginning of the day, communication at the middle of the day, and communication at the end of the day, just to make sure that all our team are supported and have a sense of well-being. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Stuart. And Jackie, would you be able to talk us kind of really briefly, just give us an overview? Obviously, we're going to have some time for greater discussion in just a moment, but kind of what your process has been for approaching hybrid working in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I've written pages here, Martha. I'm joking. Stuart's already said quite a lot, very, very similar, and I suspect everybody else is similar as well. So prior to lockdown, obviously we planned and anticipated the lockdown date. In Citizens Advice Service, certainly in Ynys Mon, we don't allow staff to use any of the personal equipment. So we ensured that we had enough laptops, headsets, etc., mobile phones, so that when they all work from home, and we trialled that 2 weeks prior to lockdown, that everybody could communicate. We also did DSE assessments to ensure that the working from home office space, you know, didn't cause any problems to the health and well-being. We also set up a WhatsApp daily check-in, so that if people just wanted to drop in the morning or at the end of the day, they could if they needed any support, and it was open throughout the day. We also have a Zoom meeting every morning and every afternoon for staff who just want to check in. We have regular monthly one-to-one health and wellbeing meetings with every single staff member. But going forward, looking at where we're going forward, so we're not going to go back, obviously, to the ours predominantly face-to-face services. We are going to be maintaining the hybrid approach. I've actually just sent out a Google form to all my staff asking what their preference is. So some staff prefer to work from the office full time. Some staff don't have an option because they can't work from home due to connectivity, because we live in a very rural area. Some staff want to come back 2 days a week, 3 days from home, etc., etc. So on that basis, that's how we're planning to introduce staff back. I've just been informed by our contact in the health board that the third wave is expected July, August, and their advice is for staff not to return to the office until January. So that's the basis that we're working on. We do have a bubble in the office, 5, and only those 5. In preparation for going back to work, we've actually had an environmental health assessment. So we had it for introducing clients into the office to ensure that the environment was as safe as possible, but also for staff and working at the office, so that now the staff and the clients know that it's a safe environment, and that we've taken all the steps to ensure that when they do come in. At the moment, we're only allowing, we're a lateral flow distribution centre, the first one to go live in Wales. We've been doing that 3 weeks. So people can come to our office in Holyhead and we give out the lateral flow test, but we also use that to engage to see if they need any urgent assistance for like food bank, emergency debt, and where they do, we bring them into quite a large screened area. So we're doing that. I think, again, what Stuart was saying about communication, we feel since we've been working remotely, we've had far better communication than ever before. It's been so much better for the staff. We also do Wellbeing Wednesday. So for half an hour every Wednesday, over a series at times, from 12 till 1 or 12 till half 1, staff are invited to stop everything, go out for a walk on Zoom. They're all linked so they can talk to each other, bake cake, knit. It's just an opportunity to just put something aside, and then they still get their half-hour lunch break on the back of that. That's proved quite popular. We've moved to using DocuSign. So instead of, we did have real difficulty, we still have difficulty with PIP forms because of the barcode. That's an issue that I am escalating. But instead of having to post things out to clients and clients having to come out the home or put them through the letterbox or post them, we're using DocuSign where we can. So we email things over, the client signs it. It saves a lot of time, and we can actually help the client quicker. Again, like Stuart said, we've got the Attend Anywhere. So we've set up a virtual drop-in, face-to-face drop-in service. So instead of the usual telephone, email, web chat, which we're doing, they can now click on one link straight into a virtual waiting room, meet and greet by an advisor. And then we've got a plethora of partners, so we move them into private rooms depending on what their area is. With the LIPS project, funded by the Access to Justice, we do have that virtual network. So it's not just the LIPS project, it's all the pro bono solicitors, Shelter Cymru, etc., who are on board for that. I'm just looking at my list. I think that's about it really going forward. I think it's all about planning, consulting with your staff. One of the things that I am concerned about, and we're still looking at, is those that are digitally excluded. So obviously, as Stuart alluded to, we still need to make sure that we have some provision for people who are digitally excluded, and there are quite a lot. So we've been funded by Welsh Government to give out brand spanking new laptops and the sort of MiFi connection for people to get broadband connection for free. Not a lot, I think we've got 15 in total. And we've also set up a food cooperative. So instead of referring people to food bank and working with them to eradicate that dependency, we've got a food cooperative where they pay £5 a week, but they get £25 to £30 worth of food. We've got nutritionalists and dietitians involved. And that's a company I set up sort of halfway through lockdown, and that's going really well. But I think that's the gist of it going forward. I'm conscious of time.
Thanks so much, Jackie. I'm sure you'll be grilled with questions when you're into the breakout rooms. Okay, so hybrid working is one of the opportunities that remote operation provides. But I think there is a slightly more tricky conversation to have here around hybrid service delivery and dealing with stuff like digital exclusion, as Jackie's kind of highlighted. But I think a fundamental question is what goes into making a successful hybrid service. So I'm going to ask Roger Smith to kind of give us just a brief overview of some delivery models that he's come across that kind of represent hybrid service delivery approaches. So Roger.
Well, I was going to just divide it in three. I think, first of all, just to begin with where we are, which is effectively the virtual office, and then how does that work? How does that change things? I thought Stuart really gave a really good grounded presentation showing how you move forward from setting up a virtual office, which is an internal thing, to then suddenly you've got WhatsApp groups, you've got Facebook, you're finding new ways of communicating with clients. So I think strand one of hybrid working is developments effectively from the virtual office. Now, what's interesting about that is it's nothing to set up a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group. What's interesting is as you go through the process, things change. And my example for that is we're using Zoom, outreach through Zoom. You take an organisation like the People's Law School in British Columbia. They spent their time going around talking in schools around British Columbia, which is a wide and remote state, to audiences 25, 26 at a time. People trudging through the snow to get there, and because of COVID, they moved to Zoom. Well, actually, they planned it before COVID. They moved to Zoom meetings. They're now getting 150 or so, and they are able to target audiences they want, topics they want, and bring together people who would not otherwise have come together in targeted outreach using Zoom, advertising a meeting, getting a speaker. What's interesting about that is what they've done it seriously, and they have changed the format of the meeting. They've thought about how you do a good Zoom outreach meetings, and they have stopped people from giving 45-minute talks. They break it into 5-6 minutes. They have a moderator, a very strong moderator with a broadcasting background, and they've really given thought to how you use Zoom in an outreach situation. And so that's a way in which the virtual office expands out to new sorts of services, which I think is really interesting. The second sort of strand is where technology allows you to deconstruct services. So it allows a new bridge between unbundled services, DIY, and centrally provided services. And you do that in an infinite variety of ways. But the interesting thing is to open up the space to explore what you can do. And that can vary from ways of steering people through digital intake. So instead of having an initial interview, you take people through a process which then provides a statement for them. They answer questions, and then it all comes out as a statement which an advisor can use or they can use. That's not a great step forward. That's done in the commercial field, but it begins to change how things go. And you get developments like there's an organization in the States called Hello Divorce, which is a mix between a lawyer's firm run by a woman called Erin Levine and a platform, Hello Divorce, which is technically separate but linked. And as a potential client, you move forward from digitally provided resources, document assembly, on the Hello Divorce website, and then you can integrate that with video connections with her and her firm, or indeed be referred to other firms. I think it's worth looking at because I think it's really well designed and it's really well thought through, and it's taking services into a different blend. And then the third strand is more difficult, really interesting, is where technology is allowing the blend of different services which would otherwise be discrete, but which be patched together. That's a sort of step beyond an individual provider providing different types of service. And then the big example would be, or the easiest example that most people would know about would be flows, which is a combination between 3 organizations doing different things and stitching them together so that as a client you can go through. And the end result of that is we are potentially moving forward from unbundled services. And those of you who have been around in the field for 10 years or so will remember co-op legal services, which was going to transform the high street, worried the Law Society a lot. And it didn't, it went belly up, partly because co-op bank went bust, but also because people just didn't find that sort of DIY assistance simplistic. But now with the development of technology, you can take that much further. There's a product in the States, Citizenship Works, which not only gives you information about it, immigration, self-assembled documents and so on, but also case manages you through the process. So tells you, keeps your timeline, and tells you when you've got to appeal, do the next thing. So we can see emerging out of the ether and emerging from simple steps forward, these at least three ways in which services are being hybridized, or I probably prefer the term blended, into new ways and tottering towards new paradigms.
Thanks so much, Roger. That's brilliant, brilliant overview. So we should expect hybrid service delivery to result in new challenges, essentially different client expectations and different models of service delivery. But I guess the question for us is, what does that mean in practice for our organisations, our users, and our approaches to adopting new ways of working, while we also try to firefight at the front line? A couple of people have mentioned kind of the lifting of the ban on eviction. So we're also a community that's trying to simultaneously deal with that